you're looking to make gnocchi from scratch and you're not sure what kind of sauce to serve with it, you're in luck because I've got some tips on making light, fluffy gnocchi, plus I'm gonna show you 2 sauces. One from the north with Gorgonzola and walnuts, then we're gonna go down south to the Amalfi Coast and make gnocchi alla Sorrentina, which is gnocchi baked with tomato sauce and mozzarella. Welcome to Actually Italian. I'm Sal and I've been living in Italy for years now. I'm really excited to teach you some authentic recipes so you can cook like an Italian yourself. There are 2 essentials to getting light and fluffy gnocchi. One is picking the right potato. If I were in the US, I would definitely pick something like a Yukon Gold potato. The second factor is the flour. Most recipes are going to tell you to use all-purpose flour, but there's too much protein in all-purpose flour, and that's what leads to a kind of tough and dense gnocchi. What to look for instead is a 00 flour with between 9 and 11% protein. Generally, this is going to be a cake flour. The first step is to boil the potatoes. We want to put them in cold water with the skins on and then bring them to a boil and let them cook until they're tender. When the potatoes are finished cooking and you can put a knife through it without any resistance, then we're ready to mash them. Once you've strained them, we want to now quote-unquote mash them. What you really want to use is a potato ricer because it's going to lighten up the potatoes. And you want to do this when they're still hot. Just throw them right in the ricer. You just squeeze it through and just collect everything in a bowl. After you've done all the potatoes, they're going to be slightly cool so you can kind of work with them better now. I'll add a beaten egg and then I'll mix that kind of through. I'll also add some salt and a generous grating of nutmeg. At this point, I'm going to use my fork to kind of mix all this together. I don't want to use my hands because then I'm going to compact everything. Once I've got everything incorporated, I want to turn this over onto my work surface. I'm going to sift some flour onto the board and turn the potato mixture right on top of it. Then I just want to add a little bit of flour to the top. Essentially, I just want to add a tablespoon of flour at a time. The other key to a nice light gnocchi is that you don't over flour it. If we add too much flour, they start getting tough. We also don't want to overwork this. I want to gently start bringing that flour into the mixture. It's going to be a little sticky at first. We want to use the tips of our fingers to just kind of incorporate everything into the potato. I can't really tell you how long that you should do this or how much flour you should use. You're basically going to feel when it's starting to kind of come together. Essentially, if it's not sticking as much, then you're basically there. Once I notice that it's not really sticking to my fingers anymore, it's not really sticking much to the board, it is a little bit, and you just scrape it up with the bench scraper. Try to resist adding more flour at that point. And once it comes together, just give it a poke with your fingers. It'll feel like a dough instead of mashed potatoes. Now I just want to put this aside on a floured surface so it doesn't stick to the board. I'll cut off a little piece, just enough to be able to roll out into some ropes. You want to roll these out into ropes that are between a ½ an inch and an inch. It's really up to you how big you want your gnocchi. Once I get them to the right size, I just take the bench scraper and I cut them every inch or so. You could leave these at this point. You could just boil these as they are. I like to add a little texture because then they can kind of catch the sauce a little bit better. The idea is to gently press with your thumb against the tines of the fork and with a downward motion kind of pull the dumpling down with it. And what you'll do is create a dimple on one side and then on the other side you have those ridges. The dimple's going to collect some of the sauce and then the ridges give you more surface area to absorb the sauce. Once I make each one, I just put them on a tray that I've dusted with some semolina flour. You can also at this point, if you're not going to eat these today, or if you're making a lot of them, you could take that tray as it is and pop that right in the freezer. Once they're frozen, you take it out and you just put them in a plastic bag, and you can use it whenever you want. Once the gnocchi are all ready, you want to get them into boiling water as soon as possible. You should have your sauces ready when the gnocchi are coming out of the water. So let's get into the sauces now. Let's start in the north. we'll do the Gorgonzola and Walnut sauce. The Gorgonzola is important here. You want to get Gorgonzola dolce, which means sweet Gorgonzola. Gorgonzola dolce works better in the sauce because it's nice and creamy, almost runny, with just that hint of funkiness. To make the sauce, we just take a saute pan or a sauce pot with just a little bit of milk. The idea is to get the milk just about to a simmer, so it's just warm enough. Then you just put chunks of the Gorgonzola in there and mix it in, kind of mash it a little bit just to get it melted. You want to do this on a low flame. Once everything's nicely melted, then we can add some chopped walnuts. Again, as much as you want. This is now ready for the gnocchi. If you have this ready to go, when the gnocchi are coming out of the water, you just lay them right into the pan, give them a nice toss to get them incorporated, and then let them sit for a minute before you serve so they can really absorb that sauce. The gnocchi are the perfect vehicle for this kind of a sauce. These are light, they're fluffy, and they just have that right amount of texture to handle a sauce like that. That Gorgonzola is so creamy and rich, and it's got a little bit of sweetness, it has a little bit of bitterness at the end, and then the nuts just bring everything together. The next one, we're gonna go down south to the Amalfi Coast area, and I think you're gonna love that recipe too. The gnocchi alla Sorrentina has a few more steps involved. You want to use a basic tomato sauce, which is really just a little bit of garlic with some olive oil, some basil, and then a good passata. Let the sauce cook just to get the rawness out of the tomatoes. I like to add some fresh cherry tomatoes towards the end when they're in season. So a couple minutes before the sauce is done, I just toss in a few of the cherry tomatoes to add a little bit of that fresh tomato flavor. I'll also give it a little bit of salt and we're ready to go. The other important component to this is mozzarella. In Sorrento, you're by the Amalfi Coast where they've got the most delicious and creamy buffalo mozzarella. All right, let's get on to the assembly. Once the sauce is ready, we're gonna have the gnocchi boiled and then strained and I set aside. I've got a little terracotta casserole dish where I'm gonna layer a little bit of the sauce down in the bottom so the gnocchi don't stick. Put a nice layer of gnocchi in there, some mozzarella, some sauce again over the top, and then I'm gonna repeat that. Another layer of gnocchi, some sauce, and I'm going to top it with some mozzarella too. And I'm also going to use a little bit of grated Parmesan cheese. At this point it's ready for the oven. We want to get it in there on about 350 and let it cook for about 20 minutes, maybe a half an hour depending on your oven. What you're looking for is for everything to be melted and incorporated, for it to be heated all the way through. Now we take it out of the oven and we just let it sit for a few minutes before we dig in. There's a huge difference between these two dishes, but they're both really delicious. This one just speaks of the Amalfi Coast. Beautifully sweet tomatoes with that creamy and stretchy buffalo mozzarella. The gnocchi themselves, again, are just so fluffy and actually light. It really brings me back to a trip that I had to Sorrento myself. And I got this exact dish. And it was on a Thursday because Thursday is gnocchi day in Italy. I hope that you make these dishes yourself. And if you do, let me know which sauce you prefer. That's it for today. We'll see you in the next video. Oh. Look at our juicy pea. Here we go. I don't want things hanging there. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Are we ready?